I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Welcome to the first in our series of business development forums. This week, we're focusing on development construction in both Chicago and around the nation. I am so excited to host this first in our ongoing series is none other than Avis Lavelle. I met her when she was I really knew her before, but press secretary to Mayor Daley. She's perhaps one of the most profound professionals in the media world that one would ever meet. And now she is executive director of the Business Leadership Council. She's always been committed to social justice, social equity, and to business development and enhancement with a particular focus on African-American owned businesses. She has been able to negotiate many different streams in this political and business landscape. And so I am excited that she has agreed to host this conversation with Sterling Bay. And then after this conversation, she's also going to host a discussion with Related Midwest, two developers that have become rising stars in the city of Chicago. But you need to know more about them and where they are, what they're doing.
Thank you, Reverend Wilson, for that very gracious introduction. And let me be the first to welcome our guests in this first segment. From Sterling Bay, we have Kiana Barrett, who is the Director of Diversity and Strategic Development, and also Melinda Kelly from the Chatham Business Association, who's a member of Sterling Bay's Diversity and Inclusion Council. So let me say welcome to you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Absolutely. Both of these women are women that I have known for a long time. And I think that Sterling Bay is very lucky to have both of you working for them to help them move forward on some of the things that they're trying to do. Now, to me, when I think of Sterling Bay, I think of mega projects. You know, Sterling Bay transforms neighborhoods. Anyone who lives in Chicago who knew the West Loop and now knows the West Loop is just stunned by the transformation of that community. Sterling Bay was responsible for the construction of the McDonald's headquarters and the Google headquarters. And those two are two of the anchors for completely transforming the West Loop into a community that is vibrant and busy and new. And what used to be an undesirable community is now a community that people can hardly get into. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. I also think of Sterling Bay in conjunction with the Lincoln Yards project, which the Lincoln Yards project is like the mega of mega projects to me. It's 50 acres along the riverfront between two parts of the river, and it's going to transform multiple neighborhoods. So now, how does an entity like Sterling Bay that's focused on these mega projects really begin to weave into the fabric of its planning African-American businesses and African-American entrepreneurs to make sure that when these communities are transformed, that we're not left behind?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Avis, for the question. And thank you to Push for always being so thoughtful and timely in the discussions that are being elevated. It's very interesting that you think about it, 57 years post the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and there's still such a significant reckoning around race diversity and equity. In my role at Sterling Bay, it was important for us to start from an internal view. What is the DNA of the company? What's our value system? As you talked about our public-facing projects and how they have been very much about creating urban campuses that have really brought business and commerce back into the city of Chicago, designed to create job opportunities for the citizens of Chicago, to create construction opportunities. But at the same time, we have to be honest. The construction industry has historically been underrepresented by persons of color and women. And so if we are really going to be an industry leader and a game changer, then we have to be intentional about, one, being honest and acknowledging some of the practices that have been very pervasive in the industry. And how will we institutionalize the change that we want to see? And looking at what are some of the root causes of what stymies growth opportunities for entrepreneurs of color. And so we looked at a few things. One, access to capital. We know so many times it's simply not having the resources that limits the ability of very qualified and capable Black and brown female-owned companies to even compete. And so we've invested over $100,000 into the Small Business Loan Fund, which has been administered by Hire 360. And it's really about creating lines of credit for small businesses. One of the other areas is just simply lack of exposure and a very abbreviated runway that firms of color are given to even participate or learn about projects. So with our Lincoln Yards development, it has a 10-year life cycle. And so that has an immense potential to change the outcome of economic mobility for communities of color. And so we certainly have been working very closely with our GCs, and proud to say that in one of the initiatives that we work very closely with the Chatham Business Association and other members of our Diversity and Inclusion Council was, how do we put language into our RFPs that really put a premium around engagement of minority-owned firms? If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist to me. And so we have to make it abundantly clear that if you want to do business with Sterling Bay, you have to really value broadening the bench, not recycling the same talent, not checking the box, but really making sure that you're broadening the outreach initiatives that exist. And then it's important to build capacity, because we realize that with all these striking developments taking place across the city and with the aging trade union population, will we have workers that are able to compete? Will we have firms that are able to JV and to really partner? So we have been very intentional to build incubators around entrepreneurship for persons of color and women, so that they can really sharpen their pencils, that they can get involved with our projects. Many know us because of Lincoln Yards, but we are broader than that. We are Chicago born and raised, and are committed to our communities. We want to make sure that growth and prosperity is felt across communities. You know, one of the things that, you know, personally I have been very committed to is authentic community engagement. How offensive is it to come into a community without real engagement of the stakeholders, lifelong residents that have seen a community at its height and have seen the disinvestment and the deterioration? Not to have that voice to be a part of the forward-thinking solutions and the economic development is a completely inappropriate way to go about development. And so Sterling Bay has been very committed to leveraging partnerships within those respective communities and really strengthening our relationship with Black and brown firms and those of color.
Melinda, is that how you fit into the broader framework for Sterling Bay, as a voice of the community to make sure that they really understand how African-American businesses on the ground look at Sterling Bay and look at what is happening?
Yes, Avis, as you know, and first of all, thank you all for having us here. Push in yourself. As you know, we are focused on Black businesses. And in this day and age, it's important as these projects get larger and larger. We've got to look at the fact that we don't have a robust pipeline of Black businesses. So without the intention of a Sterling Bay to listen, to tell us that, as Kiana talked to about incubating them, leveraging financial relationships that they have so that our businesses can have access to it, we're one of the spokes in this big wheel, because it's not only Sterling Bay. I'm so glad that, Operation Push had our IDOT transportation, that they have that relationship. We're going to have those same challenges where if we're going to transform the community, we got to get these businesses involved, which means building up our pipeline, which means looking at the existing standards. One of the things Kiana has been a part of the conversation, as well as the city, is looking at the DBE standards that are set on a federal level and how we can positively probably impact that MBE portal to make them grow and more robust and identify talent and get it going. So I'm just so proud to have that voice to represent these wonderful businesses who are growing out of programs, but also want to give us the input so we can articulate their concerns and what they need to happen with projects like Sterling Bay.
When I think of these projects, I think of projects that happen largely outside the African American community. And I'm grateful to have the participation of African American businesses in these community transforming initiatives. But tell me, Kiana, what is happening inside our community? What projects is Sterling Bay looking at inside our communities on the south and the west sides that will transform our communities and enhance our property values in the same way that property values tripled in the West Loop?
Absolutely. We own a parcel in the heart of Inglewood at 67th and Wentworth. And it is at the former site of Kennedy King College. And we have been very thoughtful about how do we repurpose that space. One, that it holds on to some of the intellectual properties that exist there. How do we create an economic engine for a community that has been deprived of resources for so long? We've seen a wave of investment as of late, but what does that look like? We have wonderful access to public transit it's on 67th and Wentworth, so it's nestled right between the CTAL line and the metro station. We know that it's right by the Dan Ryan, so there's some inherent assets and benefits there. So we've been working very closely with Alderman Sawyer, whose ward the parcel sits in, as well as many of the community organizations, because as I said before, we recognize that we know what we know, and we know what we need to know better. And so who better to coach us and to guide us and to serve as a thought partner in these developments than those that are on the ground. We also have been working with the City of Chicago on Invest Southwest. They are rolling out a next round of RFPs, and we are one of the thought partners in that for the West Pullman Roseland community. And so certainly we understand that we have some expertise that we would like to lend to the process. And we see this as a value-added proposition for us, because then we get to strengthen our understanding of the communities across the city, and really to understand what this disinvestment has really meant and how does that impact the city. It's very telling to me when I think about the narrative. What is the cost of exclusion? Do we really think about that? If we think about how much money is lost in the inequities that exist across ecosystems, so from education to housing to business to wages, what would that have meant for our community if we had a more level playing field? I'm a student of Push. So Reverend used to say, we never knew how good baseball could be until everybody could play. And so we want to make sure at Sterling Bay that, we activate the talent that exists that simply has just been marginalized and really needs a place and an opportunity to excel. So we're excited about the projects that we have in other parts of the city.
You know, I am a product of the Inglewood community, so I know how vibrant Inglewood used to be. I think what is important to note is that communities like Inglewood are not looking for a return to what they used to be. We need to be pointed toward the future, where, you know, because whatever was the underlying factors that shored up the economy then are surely not the underlying factors that shore up the economy now. So we need to be pointed toward the future in a site like 67th and Wentworth. I think about your Sterling Bay's announcement of this biotech business accelerator. I see Dr. Suzette McKinney has come over to be a leading voice in that. How will that be connected to our communities on the south and west side so that we are a part of plugging into what is the future for the economy versus looking backwards on whatever happened to make us vibrant then?
That's right. It's so important to pivot from the problems to actual solutions. With our focus around incubation, we realize that there are industries that are almost totally void of persons of color and women, from healthcare to technology to the life sciences. And when I think about even the pandemic and all the energy now around the vaccine and so much trepidation that we have in that space, there's a trust factor that exists. And when, you know, our young people need to aspire to be what they see. And so a part of our incubation strategy with the Prism Institute, which will be led by Dr. James Gillespie, in concert with the efforts being led by Dr. McKinney, we will really be putting forth a mentorship program to help align existing as well as emerging small African-American owned, female owned companies that are looking to populate these industries and recognizing some of the challenges that they face. And that's why having collaboration with organizations such as the Chatham Business Association and Melinda's Wealth of Knowledge is invaluable, because why spend time guessing on what the challenges are, what are the barriers? By being able to just leverage our partners that spend day in and day out time and efforts around creating real meaningful and not just temporary. We've got to shift from making this a moment into a movement. How do we institutionalize policies and programs and procedures? How do we work with our legislators to create public policy, as Melinda talked about, around DBE and other programs? I don't like the title set aside, so I'm hoping that that's part of the discussion too, to rename it. But how do we just have more inclusive practices that, again, are going to be able to create not only change that we need to experience today, but for years to come? I'm a mother of 2 young people, and I certainly want them to have more opportunities, an open slate of opportunities. And I think that that should be the case for all of our young people. And so that is very much a centerpiece of what Sterling Bay is looking to do, and in partnership with organizations such as PUSH and our advisory council are really committed to having the dialogue and then putting the actual work behind the words.
I know we are running out of time, but tell me, what are you doing in terms of concrete efforts to gather up human resources at the grassroots level and make sure that they're plugged into the initiatives that Sterling Bay has?
I come from the community. I come from a grassroots background. And as I said, being a student of PUSH, really making sure that we stay engaged. And it's forums such as this that allow us to do that. On our website, we have really made it as user-friendly as, to me, it needs to be. There is an opportunities page that allows the minority subcontracting community to execute that. They become an immediate part of our database, so they receive updates on all of our projects, bid opportunities, and that's very important. We also just launched, fresh off the presses, a partnership with WVON Radio called Bay Breaks. And we realize that that is a very viable platform to make sure that we're educating the community about, one, who Sterling Bay is, and about our commitment to community, and really creating a think tank of ideas, working very closely with public officials so that we can articulate some of the needs that we see and understanding how we can be a value partner to them. And I can't stress alone the CBA. We were able to partner with Melinda and her board last summer as they were focusing on many small businesses that were really just struggling given the pandemic and even after the unrest. And so we were able to help get some young people some haircuts, to provide book bags, and just to be present, just to inspire hope. That to me is so important. So we want to continue to plug into community platforms that allow us to articulate our mission and who we are, and to really make sure that we're building not only buildings, but strengthening communities and a pipeline to the future.
And if I could just jump in, both of you young ladies, Avis, you may remember you came the day before, and you literally, the Business Leadership Council gave checks to the struggling businesses who, but for that lifeline, you know, we wouldn't have made it through civil unrest. So it's that kind of activity that while you're honed in on these very large and policy, it's this hyper local relationship that we really appreciate to be able to participate in.
And you all make such a difference because you are really looped into the heartbeat of the communities with the businesses that are on the ground that are really, really vital to our communities. Now, this is what I think about when I think about this. Kiana, you said if it's not written down, it's not real. I always feel like if it's not measured, it's not real.
That's true.
You know, you got to measure it. And so what I'm looking for from Sterling Bay is a long longitudinal view of how you are able to impact the community. Because if you just hit it and quit it, and if you just drop a few dollars here and there, that doesn't change things. You know, I am looking for our communities to be changed by the Sterling Bays and the related Midwests of the world, because they are changing the West Loop, they're changing Lincoln Park and Wicker Park. We cannot have major developers come here and get all of the tax benefits that are given to being a part of a major developer and have it not inure to the benefit of all of the communities, not just part of the communities. So what is the longer term view of what is your plan in terms of how you intend to measure your impact in the communities that are not the communities of choice, where you're going to be working, the 67th and Wentworths and places like that?
Sure, well, rightfully so, that there should be an expectation and an accountability factor. And we look forward to everybody holding us accountable, you know, even on this call, because that is really what's going to make a difference. We plan to really be able to chart our advancements with the number of hires that we have as far as minority-owned firms in construction. And not only construction, but professional services. I think that's one of the areas that many times we do not have at the top of our radar. And it's so important that we include that as well. But to really be able to track the amount of dollars that are going to be invested into those firms. And then how does that translate into community hires? How many people from the immediate surrounding community is going to benefit from the development? Because I'm a firm believer in that when you become an actual shareholder in a project, you have a better sense of regard for it. So you don't, you know, you respect it. You feel as though your fingerprints are literally on it. And so that's going to be very important to us. As well as looking at ways that even through our incubator program, how are we able to track those firms' growth? And then for them to also be in a position to hire others that look like them, because that's also so important. I think it's imperative as we talk about some of these firms that are potentially graduating out of the city's MBE program and then find themselves right back in it again. What are the requirements as far as hiring other smaller firms so that there are JV opportunities or opportunities to team them together? And so those are all matrix that some of which we are obligated through the city, but there is an internal matrix that we're using because we want to come back a year from now and be able to report out where we are on those hires. Where are we with the economic investment that we've been able to make in those communities? And then how can we use that as a model to be replicated across the city and really even across the country? Because we're seeing that, you know, what's happening here in Chicago is it's not just relegated to us, but it's also important that we're looking to build up other communities of color across the country so that we can level the playing field.
I will say to you that as a person who's been involved in this push for African-American business expansion for a long time, this feels like a choice moment in the movement. I hope that it is a movement, not just a moment. You know, I think it is really incumbent upon players like you and Melinda to keep the wheels turning and to not allow the majority community to fall back asleep. You know, everybody's awake right now, and everybody realizes how important it is to have broad-based community development across the whole of Chicago, not just in certain areas. But it's really important the role that you play. So I would say to you, we are deeply appreciative of your role with Sterling Bay, and Melinda, of your role as a part of their Council on Diversity and Inclusion. We are deeply appreciative of Sterling Bay's commitment to broad-based development across the city of Chicago. And we thank you so much for coming to talk to us today.
Thank you for having us.
Attention high school seniors and college freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. If you are in need of financial assistance, Push for Excellence offers a variety of scholarships for which you may be eligible to apply. Whether it's the Jesse Jackson Fellows Toyota Scholarship, the Cirillo McSween New York Life Scholarship, or the Oralee Sanders Scholarship, Push for Excellence strives to offer something for everyone. Here are just a few of our scholarship recipients.
Hello everyone viewing, my name is Chidi Osakwe.
Dominique Davis.
Julian Jones.
China Mazum.
Miles Chairman.
Jalen Clark.
Marcus Anderson.
Jaden Reed.
Kari Young.
Ms. Megan Chu, and I'm a Cirillo McSween Scholar.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Reverend Jesse Jackson for all his support of my college education.
Thank you for all of Toyota for helping with Reverend Jackson with the scholarship as well.
I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to Reverend Jesse Jackson for helping to make the scholarship opportunity possible for me.
As appreciative as I was before, I'm even more grateful now having received this scholarship.
Not only has it helped me out financially with paying for tuition, but it has also awarded me the opportunity to learn more about the Rainbow Push Coalition and their different initiatives in the African American community.
I'd like to say thank you to Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition for all the generosity and support that they've shown me throughout my undergraduate career and for the opportunity to pursue higher education.
For more information, please visit our website at www.pushexcel.org and click on the word scholarships. Thank you, and keep hope alive.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. by engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level, and by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
When the political system was over, when we ended segregation, Black people got freer and American white folks got richer. Because when the segregation struggles ended in the South, you could begin to invest in the South without the repercussions of the struggle. So you who are familiar with America, you go from Washington south to Florida across to Texas, you see huge development. There are no constraints in investing in white America. Dr. King gave a speech in Washington in 1963, the I Have a Dream speech, it's called. My wife reminds us tonight what was missed was bounce check mark insufficient funds, the promise of freedom without repair for damage done. Free without repair for damage done. The day he gave that speech from Florida across to Texas up to Maryland, we can use a single public toilet. We can take a picture on the lawn of the state capitol across the South. Black and brown soldiers had to sit behind Nazi prisoners of war on American military bases. The day he gave that speech. We won the battle against apartheid, political apartheid. Won the battle for the right to vote. Tonight, 54% of all African Americans make less than $15 an hour, which is poverty wages in America. And the other are debt slaves. They got more credit, but with the credit they get cars they cannot afford, housing, clothes, so they have wages without wealth. Because wealth is what is over after you finish paying off your debt. That means somewhere between the working poor and the debt slaves, relatively little progress is made. So bear with me for a minute on this, because I think it's critical that we see where we are tonight, here and where we are in America. Whites, richer, blacks, freer. I heard somewhere the other day that 4% of the land is owned by Black Africans. I heard that a rumor. Free but denied access to capital, banks, insurance, ownership of mass media, university access, shipping and logistics, international trade, risk capital, athletic teams, marketing, mining, aeronautics. Don't be too hard on those who have not achieved that yet. The last generation's struggle was to end the struggle for freedom. That generation got freedom, you got to fight for equality. And many of our freedom allies will not be our equality allies.
We are back with the second part of our program. And this part of the program, we are talking to a leadership team from Related Companies, Related Midwest. Related is one of the nation's largest privately owned real estate development firms, and it focuses on community transformation. I mean, they do large projects just as our previous guest does, large projects, mega projects, I would call them. Some of those on tap are things like on the site of what was to be the Chicago Spire on Lakeshore Drive, 400 North Lakeshore Drive, and also a transformative project in the West Loop, Lathrop Homes redevelopment. Joining me are Jeffrey Brodsky, who is the Vice Chairman of Related Companies and the Executive Vice President of Related Affordable, Yannette Garcia, who is a Senior Project Manager who led the Lathrop Homes redevelopment, and Kiara Ellis, who's their Director of Public Affairs. I welcome all three of you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ms. Lavelle.
I'm thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to talk to you because you do big things, and the work that you do changes the landscape of the city of Chicago. The work that you do is important, and your commitment to making sure that the benefits of the work filter all the way down to the community level is an important part of that. So let me start with you, Mr. Brodsky. Talk a little bit, if you will, about your commitment and what may be even a renewed commitment to this effort after everything that we went through in 2020.
Thank you. And the commitment is, there's no question what happened in 2020 has been horrifying from so many levels, and I think will cause an acceleration on what we are proud to say we have been doing for many, many years, but we will now be doing at scale and with more intensity and with more focus. Without question, Related Midwest has been the leader in diversifying and in wealth building and in community building and in developing careers in Chicago. And effectively, Related is now taking those best practices that have been developed by Kira and by Yannette and their teams in Chicago, and are now expanding the usefulness of those and the application of those into other cities where we are developers as well. And so the framework, which is ultimately career and wealth building, is a series of steps that I know Kira and Yannette are looking forward to sharing in some detail, but ultimately we hope to scale beyond not only Chicago, improve and expand on in Chicago with the 78 and with other of our developments, but as important to us is how this fits into the greater diversity commitment that Related has as a national platform.
Now, I know you're a founding member of Hire 360, and that's an important element of how this gets integrated. Tell me how you're applying that through Related Midwest.
Sure. The Related Midwest folks, I think if you wouldn't mind, let the experts who are on the ground doing the hard work take a shot at the Hire 360 framework, and just know that we're trying to expand on that.
When we talk about our internal values as it relates to equity, diversity, and inclusion, and we talk about contracting, right, and hiring, there's a lot of components of that work that we do to make sure that contracts are successfully executed, not just in paper, but like out in the field, right? And the same thing with hiring. So on the contracting side, we hire minority and women-owned businesses, and we take chances with first contracts. We've awarded over 17, new contracts to subcontractors. But what I'm getting to is that the part where it takes a company from working with us to the mentorship to make sure that that company is successful, right? So when we don't have the resources internally, we then look to external resources. And one of those is Hire 360. And as a co-founder of that organization, to say, we know there are pieces along the way of a company that needs to make sure they can check the box, that they know how to run contracts, know how to run accounting, know how to run marketing. Hire 360 is able to provide those services, from certifications through potential loan options, and the same thing on the hiring, right? So if we want to hire from within the community, we're not looking at jobs, we're looking at careers. And so how do we maintain someone's ability to have a career in the trades if it's not through training and certifications, right? So we partner again with organizations that can be a resource to our community and to our hires. And so there's where Hire 360 comes, right? And they're able to provide those resources and that hiring so that an individual does not have a job that is for 3 to 6 to 12 months, but rather they can take that skill set, those certifications, become more competitive in the market and go on to the next job. So that's the Hire 360 overall look at saying we want to make sure that we are looking at something, the long-term contracting and hiring, as well as other things like vendor manufacturing and education, youth education as well.
Kiera, I guess I would consider you the mouthpiece in a lot of ways, in that your job is to make sure that people really understand the commitment of Related Midwest is to the community. How are you doing that?
Biggest way we do that is with our Community Inclusion Council. So this was an unprecedented organization that we brought together trade advocacy groups, the Black Contractors United, U.S. Minority Developers Council, Asian Contractors United, and we brought them all together and said, hey, we would like you to come here, advise us on our equity, diversity, and inclusion practices, and make sure we're doing it right. We wanted them to be able to evaluate what we were doing. We wanted them to be able to hold us accountable if we weren't doing something right, and to help us formulate our program. So we have that here, and it is our liaison to the community. It's in kind of open door policy about who can sit on it, and we make sure that by every project we kind of allow them to evaluate, okay, what are your goals for this, and how are you going to reach a certain amount of community hires? And that really bridges the gap between the development side and the community, because it lends us a lens of credibility, because these are organizations that these community members know, that they trust. And it also, again, gives us a level of accountability to say, did you do what you said you were going to do? So that's a key component, and we can't do anything without our Community Inclusion Council. And all of our programs are really born out of not only giving the community a seat at the table, but giving them a voice. So are we valuing the community and what they're saying? And are we giving them, the kind of opportunity to hold us accountable and make a change?
You got to open the doors. So how do you make sure that you are opening the doors to take in those professional service purveyors and create business diversity as opposed to just supplier diversity, which really speaks to me about at the supply level, at the construction level?
We consider professional services a part of the supply chain. And I think that is kind of the next level that we're, advancing to. Is I think there's we have participation goals by the city, but they're on the construction side. So now we're starting to look at our teams on professional services and say, okay, where is the diversity and how are we opening those doors for companies and holding ourselves again accountable? And that's a part of the CIC again. And I'll pass it off to Annette too, if you want to add anything to that.
Sure. The whole approach starts way at the front end on the deal side, and our construction team, as we're putting together budgets, we're also talking about who the architect could potentially be on these projects. And so the conversations are being had front end. So when we look at the majority of our affordable projects, are maybe I'd say around 80% of them are contracted to an MBE or a WBE. And we make sure that we are diversifying the pool of individuals that we are working with. Yes, one may be tried and true, but let's give this guy a shot. It's changing the mindset really about how we approach the professional services as well. And so we're looking at the team holistically. Now, I will say this: there are some times when an individual or a specific engineering, right, may not have, let's say elevator consultants may not have an MBE, WBE elevator consultant company, but we can make the request to say, I'd like from your team, if there's a minority or if there's a woman on the team, let them work on our job. We want them working with us on this project. And so that's where we start making change and allowing for people to get exposed to different professionals as well.
Ms. Lavelle, your point is really very, very well taken. It is a natural occurrence that the folks that you've already developed a relationship with, the quality of their work, are the first person you call, and they are historically not minority women-owned firms. That has to be broken. That is a systemic, natural condition that we have to overcome through our practice and our procedures, meaning our internal commitments. These are not generally commitments that we make to third-party organizations. This is not part of our debt or our loan programs. Those are generally focused on construction, and Yannette made that very clear, but the professional services effort has to be from the development company. It does not naturally occur. And so we are now making commitments inside of our deal letters when we are proposing investments to our C-suite. The C-suite is reviewing our commitments to diversity, including how professional services are going to be committed, and how much effort, no different than talent in your organization, what kind of effort are you going to make to look for underrepresented groups, to intentionally go and find those relationships. And in some cases, we will try to partner organizations so we get comfortable with them. In other cases, if they don't have 100% of the skills, but they have 50% of the skills, can they partner, right? So can I use a landscape architect that is, for example, a minority of women-owned firm, partnering with a lead architect who might not be. So we will find ways, as Yannette mentioned, the alternative is also to get commitments from those professional service organizations, attorneys, lending counsel, bond counsel, not just associated with hard cost, to make sure that the folks that are working on our deal are learning from us. We have a little bit of arrogance in there that we think we have something to offer to their professional development, and we see this as us giving them a skill set. If you can satisfy us, and we're not easy, and we're relatively sophisticated in the way we see these deals, then they are going to be advancing their skill levels within their firm, and they're going to be advancing their relationships with people within Related. So we think that is a very powerful, at the same time that we're trying to source minority firms to actually do the work and keep track of how well we're doing that in our internal reporting.
I think that's very important. And two things that you said stick out to me. One is that your hierarchy at your company is actually measuring this, because as you may have heard me say before, I don't believe anything that's not measured is really real.
Right.
So if you don't measure it and you don't actually know what you've accomplished, I'm not sure that anything is getting accomplished. So the fact that you're taking metrics on it, I think that's critically important. Another thing you said, Yannette, you said to me that you look for a lot of those skills on the affordable projects, but I am hopeful that it is global in terms of your approach to the kind of work, because I want people of color to be engaged in work that is forward thinking and looking towards the future, because we're not trying to revive the past in any way. We're trying to prepare for a brighter future. And so giving these folks an opportunity to work on not just affordable projects, but on all types of projects is critically important.
You know, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's where Jeff was saying that in the front end deal memo, as we're looking at projects, that's where it's all going to hit. The one message that we carry across our office right now is that when we look at a project, we're not looking at it just with budget and schedule in mind. We are also looking at with diversity and inclusion and equity in there as well. So it carries the same weight as schedule and budget. Absolutely.
That's critically important.
And I would also add that there aren't, in Chicago at least, we don't have a ton of architects who have experiences doing big high-rise buildings, right? So you mentioned the Chicago Spire site earlier. So what we've been doing now is Roosevelt Square, which is a project in kind of the near west side of Chicago. We have a minority architect working on the mid-rise, right? So we are trying to, grow them and scale them so they eventually get that experience so they can make it up to the high-rise level, because we want them on all part of our, projects, affordable, market rate, all of it.
When people think of your company, they don't necessarily think of development that is happening in the communities of color. And I think that may be wrong. That, I certainly, as I did the research for this work, didn't know that you were responsible for Lathrop homes. And that's certainly in the community. But, it is important that people understand that companies like yours are transforming communities across the face of Chicago, not just to the north or not just downtown. So what are some of the other transformative projects that you are working on in communities of color?
Yeah, so the one that most immediately comes to mind is Universal City. So that is a about 200 or 300 unit affordable property in the 7th Ward of Chicago, which is south around 95th Street and Constance. And we are doing an extensive renovation there, which is going to preserve its affordability for an additional 30 years. But we also really set some high standards for ourselves. So we told the aldermen there, and we committed to the community, we're going to do 40% minority and women-owned participation, and we're going to set a minimum of 4 community hires from the surrounding area, so that when people see development happening in their community, they know that they can have an opportunity to be a part of it. So that is one of the ones that we're really proud of. It's underway now, and we should be finishing in the next 12 to 18 months.
So it's funny you bring that one up, Kara. I just ran the numbers, and we've already did our 4 hires, and we're at like 52% MBEWB participation on that project. So we're way above the goal. Another project, I don't know if you want to touch base on this one as well, Kara, but Roosevelt Square is one that's currently in development, and I know you know a lot of the stats on that, and I think that would be a great one to talk about.
Yes, and so that one, our actually architecture and engineering, and it's mixed income, affordable, market rate, and CHA, our architecture and engineering on that is over 60%. So we're really proud of that one on the professional services side as well. And so we're hoping to close on that and get underway by the end of the year.
Kira, I think also that, you know, the MBE is the focus of this conversation, but community building broadly is really the goal and awareness. I think it would be helpful if you also broach the library site as an example of bringing a real community benefit into the building, literally, along with affordable housing.
Yes, and so this was a really great opportunity that we had with the CHA to do a co-located library with affordable housing on top. And so we were one of the first to do it in the city, and it is again, a huge community benefit that's right downstairs in, affordable housing. And so that's in the kind of near Roosevelt Square, Taylor Street community over by kind of University Village and near West Side that we are really proud of. And that one was also very successful on the participation side. So we've had a lot of success there and want to do more of community impact. So when we build something in the community, is there a community room? What do they need and what services are we offering? It's not just building a building.
So what is the pipeline for businesses and workers who want to be a part of what it is that you do? How do they know? How do they get in? How do they manage to stay in?
So one of the things that we do for every single one of our projects that goes that's ready and to go out to bid is that we reach out to all the different trade organizations. A couple of things. Every subcontractor that works on our project, our team gets to meet with them. We constantly are developing relationship with different subcontractors and individuals in the community so that when the opportunity comes, we're ready, we know who's out there, and we invite them out to bid. On top of that, we then go to the different trade organizations, we give them a whole package. When the package goes out to bid, if they start responding and they need assistance during the bid process, we provide them assistance to make sure that they are being as competitive as possible in filling out all their paperwork, in submitting on time, in any way that we can help them facilitate the process of being involved in the bidding of a project. We certainly take that on ourselves.
And it's also the Community Inclusion Council, so they bring us a ton of businesses, and we also, we keep an open door. So if anyone wants to be added to our bidders list, all they have to do is reach out. I shout this email all the time because I personally monitor it, but community@relatedmidwest.com. If you have a need, whether it be you want to get to know us, you want to have a meeting, just email us at community@relatedmidwest, and I personally will get back to you and see how we can work together.
Thank you so much for all of this information. And I guess I would give this last big softball question to Jeff. And the day is not going to be done for a long time for Related, but when the day is done, how do you want Related to be remembered and thought about in terms of its impact on the community?
Thank you. I don't know that that's such a softball. It's a hard process, Ms. Lavelle. We're very, very anxious to be seen as someone who's working hard to overcome systemic barriers that exist in communities like Chicago, not exclusively Chicago, but wherever we do business. There are too many systems in place that need to be broken so that people will have the opportunities that we're talking about. The efforts that my colleagues have been explaining have been over a number of years and are on the ground, boots on the ground, hand to hand, and are not easily executed at scale. We would love to be known as one of the leaders in the industry that helped these systemic barriers to be removed and to expand on the capacity of minority and women-owned businesses not to have to be so compromised in their ability to participate in the wealth building that comes from the community development we do.
If I could leave the audience with one thing, it's just that as you seek to, have opportunity with related or other development companies, I would, encourage everyone to move beyond we want jobs, we want to be included. Let us know and challenge us to develop programs to remove whatever barrier it is. If your bond is too high, ask for a program to be developed for that. If you don't have access to capital, ask for that. I think that would be the biggest way to move the needle and create actual progress is by helping developers identify ways that they could be of service to you and create programming that will remove those hurdles.
Jeff Brodsky, Yanette Garcia, and Kiara Ellis, you have ably represented related companies in Related Midwest. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for sharing with us all of this information, critically important to what it is that you do and what we do as well. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ms. Lavelle.
Thank you so much for having us.
Dr. Kim, I went to jail with a group of 7 students, July 17, 1960, almost 60 years ago. We never stopped moving. I lost a few jail cells and death. We never stopped moving. I thought it was time to write some of it down so the older generation can learn how we did and what we did and how global it was. Whether speaking about Mandela in South Africa, India, Qatar, about Gandhi in India, here at home. This book tells the story, so please get it and give it to your friends. Read it, let's argue about it, let's discuss it.
Yep, so the book is Keeping Hope Alive, Sermons and Speeches of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It's quite a good collection. We've got sermons and speeches from around the globe because you have made such a global impact, not just here in the US, but around the world.
Thank you for tuning in to our International Saturday morning broadcast. We need your support. Here are ways to give to Rainbow Push Coalition. Text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444 to support the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Rainbow Push Coalition. When you shop, Amazon gives. Visit Amazon Smile and select Push for Excellence as your charitable organization by starting your shopping at smile.amazon.com.
Get involved with the movement.
Somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Join the movement.
If you're not a member, become a member.
I am somebody.
Fighting the most important battles for freedom and justice for all.
You made us change. Oh, trying to bring closer.
Join Rainbow Push.
But you're not pushing me away.
Join the movement.